Hello, this tutorial is introducing you to the progression 4-5 to 1. And so let's do a little review of what we did in the last tutorial, which is 1-5-1. 1-5-1 features root movement up a fifth. You can either go up a fifth or you can go down a fourth. That's also characteristic of the motion from 1 to 4. This kind of root movement, leaping root movement, makes the upper voices fairly easy to write without parallels. You can keep the voice leading smooth by step or holding common tone, and as long as you've doubled the root, then you don't really have to worry about parallel fifths, because you're not, unless you're leaping around to the upper voices, and that's usually something that you can avoid. It works pretty well when you go to the 4 chord, 1 to 4. It's really the same basic motion. 1 to 4 is the same basic voice leading as 5 to 1. So let's put the 4 chord in here. Let's just first identify what the pitches are. We're in the key of C minor, so it's C, E flat, G, or Fa, La, Do. And again, as you can see, the motion is from the bass up a fourth. So let's put one tone in the soprano. Let's hold a common tone in the soprano. That's Do to Do. And the alto voice, we just simply move down a third. We go use closed voicing just like we've been in. And then we move to the next chord tone down in the tenor voice, which would be C or Fa. And when we play these, let's first label that. So let's hear what that sounds like. 1 to 4. See here how smooth the voices are, but no parallels. Okay, now that works fine for the 1 to 4, and you'll notice that that motion is essentially upper neighbor motion in the alto and tenor. But when we move to the 5 chord, we move up a step, and in the minor you want to raise the leading tone. You have smooth voice leading, but you've also got parallel octaves between bass and tenor, and just as bad or worse, you have parallel fifths between bass and soprano, and also between tenor and soprano. So you've got 3 major things wrong in this progression. Let's listen to how bad that is. So that's what you really want to avoid, because that's what theory teachers like to mark red all over. So how to avoid this seemingly easy mistake? Well, you avoid it by moving in contrary motion in all upper voices. So instead of going Do to Re in the soprano, you go Do to Ti, and then the alto voice goes La to Sol. So what you're doing is you're moving down to the chord, to the nearest chord tone in the dominant chord. And the tenor also moves down to the nearest chord tone, but it's not down by step. It goes Fa down to Re. So one voice is going to move down by third, the other two are going to move down by step. But that's so it's Do Ti, La to Sol, or La to Sol, and Fa to Re, and that works every time. So let's listen to that progression. Okay. This type of voice leading pattern works actually for all progressions that move up by step. So where the root movement is up by step. So 1 to 2 is a less common version, but you can encounter it, but only in the major. So in G minor, the 2 chord is a diminished triad, so we would want to avoid that. But in the major, we can G major, so I'm going to change the key here. So we have, let's change that to a major chord. So here's the 1 chord. Now just move all the voice leading up a step, and I have the pitches of the 2, but of course again I have parallel octaves between bass and soprano, and parallel fifths between bass and alto. So again, bad news. So how to avoid this? The exact same way as you did when you moved 4 to 5. So in the soprano, instead of going Do to Re, you move Do down to the next chord tone that belongs to the 2, which is the La. do down to la. The sol in the alto voice moves down to the fa. And the tenor voice, the do mi, moves down to double the bass, do re. So here's what this sounds like. Now that's a less characteristic progression than the 4 to the 5, but you encounter it, and when you do, this is exactly what you do. You write contrary motion between bass and soprano, and bass in all the upper voices. Okay, so this is your marching orders for any progression that the root motion is up by a step. Double the root and move the upper voices in contrary motion to the bass. All right, have a great break. I'll see you next week.